Matt from Jaggers Brewing Co. Today's project is a collaboration brew, a tropical stout called Across the Pond. Across the Pond Tropical Stout was a collaboration brew between the Granbarian brewer and I. So we have been chatting back and forth a little bit about a few different things, and I just hit him up and I said, hey, would you like to maybe do a collaboration brew? I said, you know, that's what homebrewing is about, is being able to be able to connect and, you know, share some stories and stuff. And without hesitation, he messaged me back. He said, sure, what do you got in mind? So we went over a couple lists of some things of what we would like to brew, and I brought up Tropical Stout that sounded pretty interesting to me, and once he looked into it, he said, yeah, that sounds really good, let's do that one. So let's pour that beer, and then we'll talk about it here real quick. So here it is, collaboration brew, and got a little bit of a thin head on this pour, but there it is. So let's get the statistics here real quick. As of today, my video is about a month after he released his part of the video. His part of the video was a conference call between us where we both drunk our versions of the beer and talked about what we experienced brewing the beer, what we experienced tasting, smelling, all that. And so this thing's kind of aged out a little bit, and when I first tasted it, I told him that I felt like a little age would kind of help it. I noticed that mine was a little bit kind of on the too roasty side, and we'll get into the recipe kind of development and stuff here in a little bit. My version of the recipe will be in the description. His recipe was slightly different. We used more or less the same base recipe. He made some modifications because he had problems getting one grain, and then he didn't have molasses readily available to him. In addition, he added a little bit more wheat to his because he was doing hand pours from the beer engine that he has, which is pretty cool. So his turned out to be 7.6% ABV due to some of those modifications. Again, my green bill and recipe, all the temperatures and stuff will be in the description. For this one, I'm just more or less going to be talking about our boil additions and what we did kind of post boil and whatnot. So for my boil additions, I had 37.8 IBUs go into the boil at 60 minutes, and then I used 16 ounces of molasses also at the 60-minute mark. After the molasses was added, we let it boil for a little bit longer, and then we threw in the Whirlfloc tablet with the last 15 minutes of the boil left, and then we used the yeast nutrient at the last 10 minutes. After that, we did a hop steep or whirlpool. I attempted to kind of more or less do the whirlpool by mimicking it as best as I could. So I busted out the wort chiller and used it on this beer, which is abnormal for me. If you don't know, most of the time I no chill my beer. So I brought out that wort chiller, put it in the middle of the wort and brought it down to about 185. And then I took my hot basket and I placed it right there in the middle. Once I hit my temperature, I tried to hold it at about that 185 for about 15 minutes, and then I just spent the whole 15 minutes just stirring that wort around that hot basket. And the idea of me doing that was I was trying to chase as much of that sweetness and the fruitiness as possible with the grain bill. Looking at the BJCP descriptions for this beer, it's supposed to be a dark, sweet, strong ale with smooth roast and no burnt harshness. It's supposed to be sweet and smooth. That's referenced an awful lot for this beer. It's supposed to have the medium to medium full mouthfeel, and it's basically supposed to be a scaled up sweet stout with a higher fruitiness. So that was the big push with the malts that I chose. When I started to look for recipe development, recipes were kind of just everywhere as far as malt selections and stuff like that. So I gathered up quite a few of like I don't know, the top 5 or so, and tried to find a lot of the things that they all kind of shared in common. And while I was doing that, I took some liberties myself of adding it. Now, since we've brewed this and we've shared it and we've talked about it and all that, Mean Brews came out with a pretty good video on his version of the Tropical Stout, which looked really interesting, and I think I'm going to try that out probably the next time that I try to do this style, and kind of after I've taken the notes of this beer, kind of compare them to that and see where I end up on it. For the hop bitterness, for the hop stand, that added 7.3 IBUs. And so since I went ahead and had that chiller out, I went ahead and brought it as close to room temperature as I could with this wort chiller. I stalled out right around 100 or 90 degrees thereabouts, and then after that I went ahead and just brought the kettle in, let it come back down to room temperature, and then I pitched the yeast. I ran this beer at room temperature, hoping that kind of being on the upper end of this yeast strain that would kind of still help promote some of that fruitiness without getting a lot of those like alcohol byproduct, the higher alcohol byproducts of fermentation, like, you know, like the nail polish and like rocket fuel type taste and smells and stuff like that. And for fermentation, we use the White Labs 004 Irish Ale yeast. I got 2 packs of it just because at the higher projected starting gravity anyways, I didn't feel comfortable that 1 yeast packet would be able to do it. So we pitched both of those, and the projected starting gravity was a 1.081. The actual starting gravity that I got was 1.076 with a finishing gravity of 1.076. Oh, I'm sorry. With a finishing gravity of 1.022, and the ABV for this one came out to be 6.56% with a total IBUs of 45.1. So with all that said, What does it smell like, taste like, look like, all that. Again, it's pretty dark, pretty stout-like looking. I noted during my initial taste test before the video conference between Grim and I that it had a lot of fruit aroma. Let's see if it stuck around. I'm gonna say yes. Has a kind of like a pronounced banana smell to it. Kind of smelling some of those tropic aromas. It's been a little bit since I've had this beer. It's probably been about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, somewhere right around there. And I haven't really noticed too much of a change. It seems maybe like it's a little bit less sharp than it was a few weeks ago, but it's definitely there for sure. Smell some just like malty sweetness attached to it too, so that's pretty good. I would put this in the kind of more medium mouthfeel, not full. Maybe somewhere just under like Guinness, I would say. Now, as far as the taste and all that, the smells, everything that we did, I'm gonna say I feel like as far as a tropical stout, missed the mark a little bit. It's got very good stout-like taste and mouthfeel and things like that, but it's not on the sweeter side. This thing, I'm pulling a lot of those like coffee and dark bitter chocolate notes and things like that. I don't think that it's necessarily a mist-balanced stout. I would say though that I feel like the roastiness and all that it just takes away from what it was supposed to be. I really feel like I missed the mark on making this recipe. I'm gonna go back and review my recipe and compare it to Mean Brews and kind of see what all he was doing. I watched the video. I didn't take notes during the time. That was just kind of like leisure YouTube watching. So all in all, it's not a bad stout. I would almost kind of put it in lines to like the Guinness foreign extra stout, kind of like what that tastes like. That kind of almost same mouthfeel. It doesn't have that quite that Guinness twang to it, but I'm happy with it. I've been drinking it, not quite as much as I have the raw ales and kind of little lighter beers, just because it's like 900 degrees here in Texas. But I can't really complain with it from the stout level, but from the Tropic Stout, I do have some complaints there, just because it doesn't meet those descriptors and stuff like that. The hop stand, I think I would definitely probably change. I don't think I gained anything for that with this. This thing definitely, for the Tropic Stout side of things, those roasty toasty notes need to be suppressed a little bit. I wonder how much the molasses really contributed to that. I've used molasses a few times in some beers. It's not a super familiar ingredient to me. I I think I've used it in 3 now so far. The pre-prohibition porter beer that I did, I know I used molasses in that, and it was a little harder for me to pick up. Now, during my first taste test before the meeting with Grim, I took kind of like a sneak peek at it, and you know, we were going over it, and back then it was like super like roasted and toasted and chocolate and coffee, and like it was almost accurate, like just it was just like super bitter, but not like hot bitterness. And it took me a little bit to kind of figure out. There was just some taste that I was not able to identify, and then it snapped. It was like, that's the molasses. I taste a little bit of the molasses now, but if you go and look at the grain bill, that thing is super complicated. That thing needs some readjustments and stuff like that. So I've learned some stuff writing recipes since I wrote that one, and you know, some of the professional brewers that I know, they say, you know, like if you're not using something in 5%, your recipe probably doesn't need it. And so maybe that's some good advice, going back and looking at this and saying, okay, well, if I bump this up a little bit and subtract this here, you know, maybe I don't even need that particular malt. Well, you know, what's it doing? Kind of just go back and re-simplify the recipe a little bit. Other than that, like I said, for a good stout, it's good. For a tropical stout, kind of missed the mark. But all in all, it was really cool to get with Grim and just do some chatting back and forth about different beers. If you're not following him on YouTube or on his Instagram, you really should. He's got, at least from my perspective, a pretty cool setup. He does things pretty easy as well. He tries to do a really just super job at everything that he's doing and explaining, and he has a really intriguing, to me, one, kettle, and then 2, that whole like hand pull beer engine thing. That's pretty awesome. I would like to know more about that and experience that. I think that's a pretty cool piece of equipment. So if you haven't checked out this channel, you should. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you really should. We got some pretty cool projects coming up. Some more collaborations are shaking loose. So I'm pretty stoked about some of the stuff that we're doing and where we're heading and things that we're looking at doing. I've got some pretty cool things coming up really soon to share with you guys. I think some of y'all are gonna really enjoy it. It's gonna kind of be a little bit different content for this channel to look at and enjoy, and so I think having that different stuff there is gonna be cool. Other than that, you know, thanks for coming along, checking us out, and if you've brewed your own tropical stout and you look at my recipe and you're like, boy, you need some help, put that in the comments. Help me fix this thing. Let me know what I've done wrong. Past that, cheers guys. Later. So today, across, so go on. So this one is about a, hey, hush.